The sun was setting behind the tall metal towers of District 12 Orange. Light touched the streets where broken machines and silent drones lay forgotten. People walked fast with heads down, avoiding the eyes of guards watching from the towers in. The middle of this silent town walked a man in a dark coat. His name was Rylan. He looked tired but strong. He carried a scanner on his left arm and a weapon on his right side. He had a mission from Earth Command 1, order find and deport the alien. Mother hiding here, she is dangerous. They said she is a threat, no questions asked. Rylan stopped near a food stall. He looked around, no one made eye contact. He pressed a button on his scanner. The screen showed a small red light blinking the signal. Was near his boots made no sound as he walked deeper into the narrow streets. Buildings stood close to each other like they were hiding secrets. Children played near a trash pile but stopped when they saw him. One little girl stared at him longer than the others. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes too wide, too silent. She ran before he could say a word. Rylan followed. He moved quickly but quiet. The girl ran into a broken building. Its door was half open. He stepped inside. Dust filled the air. The place smelled like old metal and cold air. He moved up the stairs with care. Each step made a creak like it was warning someone. Then he heard it. A soft voice, a child whispering. He moved closer and stopped near a door. It was locked from the inside. He pulled out his ID and scanned it. The lock clicked open. Inside the room, he saw a woman holding the same girl in her arms. The woman had blue skin like the girl. Her hair was silver, and her face calm but scared. She stood in front of her daughter. Like a shield, Rylan raised his weapon but did not fire. He waited. The girl looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. Then she spoke in a soft voice. "Please don't take my mommy." Rylan froze. He was trained to deal with aliens, trained to follow orders. But this did not feel like a threat. It felt like a home. The woman looked at him and said, "We are not here to hurt anyone. We are hiding. We escaped a war. We just want to live." That's all. Rylan kept his weapon low. His scanner was still blinking. She was the target, but she was not attacking, not dangerous. Just scared. He asked her name. She said Lyra, and this is my daughter. Now Rylan looked at the girl. She was no more than 6 years old. She held a small toy made of scrap wires and buttons. She did not speak again, only looked at him with wide eyes. He asked them how long they had been here. Lyra said, 6 months. We moved often. We tried to stay quiet. We didn't steal. We didn't fight. We just wanted to be safe. Rylan looked around the room. There were no weapons, only blankets, food packets, a small light machine hanging from the ceiling. He remembered his order. Deport the alien mother, no questions. But now he had questions. He asked why they came to Earth. Lyra said, because Earth was the last place that had peace. My world is gone, burned in fire. I saved Nally. I ran with her. We came here because I heard Earth was kind. Rylan sat down slowly, his weapon still in hand but now resting on his leg. He asked, "Do you know you are illegal?" "Here, Earth does not allow aliens without permission." Lyra nodded. "Yes, I know, but I had no choice. I had no ship, no money." Just her. Nally walked closer to him. She gave him her toy. He looked at it. It was simple but creative. She had made it from trash and wires, a small bird with wings that moved when pressed. She said, "I made this for mommy. It sings when she is sad." Rylan looked at her, then at Lyra, then at the scanner on his arm, still blinking red. He turned it off. The room went quiet outside the building. A drone flew by. It scanned the area and left. Rylan stood up. He looked at Lyra and said, "They told me you are dangerous, but I don't see danger here. I see a mother and a child." Lyra said nothing. Her eyes were full of fear, but also hope. Rylan walked to the door. He paused and looked back. "I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm not taking you today." He left the room and walked down the stairs. His mind was full of questions. Was the mission wrong? Was Earth hiding the truth? He stepped outside. The wind was cold. His communicator buzzed. A voice spoke, "Agent Rylan, do you have the target?" He looked at the sky. Then, at the empty street, he replied, "No target found," and he turned off the com. Night had fallen over District 12 with a quiet darkness that made even the air feel heavy. Streetlights flickered like dying stars, and far above drones moved, silently watching every corner of the city. Inside the same broken building where Rylan had found the alien mother and her daughter, silence filled the room. Rylan stood near the door, thinking too much, thinking too fast. He was trained to be strong, to follow orders without emotion, but something inside him had changed, something soft, something real. He looked at the little girl Nally as she sat beside her mother Lyra, holding her toy bird close to her chest. She had not spoken again, but her eyes kept asking the same question. Will you take her away? Will you take my mommy? Rylan sat on the floor slowly as if he had dropped the weight of the whole galaxy from his shoulders. He asked again, "Why did you come here? Not just because of war. Tell me the real reason." Lyra looked at him with tired eyes that had seen too much in too little time. She spoke in a calm voice full of hidden pain. "I was a teacher on my planet, a place once filled with green skies and crystal cities. Then the war came not from outside, but from our own people. They wanted to use children like Nali. They wanted to make weapons from minds not ready to understand power. So I ran from everything I loved, from my family, from my home, from everything that made me who I was." Rylan listened with a face that showed no feeling, but inside his thoughts moved like a storm. He asked how Nali was different. What power did she have? Lyra hesitated, then nodded slowly and opened a small silver box from her bag. Inside was a crystal glowing with soft blue light. She touched it, and suddenly the room changed. A vision appeared in the air, a memory not shown on screens, but alive like magic. Rylan saw Lyra holding a baby wrapped in a fire blanket running through a broken city. He saw soldiers chasing her with metal suits and red eyes. He saw ships falling from the sky. Then he saw her find a small Earth cargo vessel and hide inside with the baby as it launched into the stars. The vision faded and the room felt cold again. Lyra placed the crystal back in the box and said, "This is a memory crystal. It holds my truth. Nali is not only from my world. Her father was human. He died before she was born. He worked with your science team. He helped us. He loved me, and when things got worse, he helped me escape. I didn't tell your people because I was afraid they would take her, afraid they would study her like a tool, afraid they would turn her into something not human, not alien, just a weapon." Rylan felt like something sharp had touched his heart. He looked at Nali. She smiled softly, and the toy bird in her hands began to float for a moment. No wires, no tricks, just a strange soft energy around her. He stood and walked to the window, pulling the curtain just a little. Outside everything looked the same, but he now saw the world differently. His scanner was still off, but his communicator was flashing. Again, a message waiting. He did not open it. Instead, he asked, "Do you want to stay here? Do you want Nali to grow up on Earth?" Lyra looked surprised, then said, "I want her to have a home, not to run forever, not to hide in shadows. I want her to laugh and go to school and make friends, even if I have to disappear, even if they take me away. If she is safe, I will accept anything." Lee looked up and grabbed Rylan's hand, her small fingers warm, her voice soft. "I want to stay with my mommy, please, Mr. Something." Inside, Rylan broke, then healed at the same time. He looked at both of them and said nothing, but his silence said everything. He turned on his scanner. It blinked red again. Target found. But this time he pressed a new command signal. Jammed location. Scrambled. The system would now show an empty building, no signs of life. He placed the scanner back into his coat, then took out a small chip. He gave it to Lyra. "A safe zone," he said. "Old supply base, abandoned. Use this map. Stay there for now. I will come again." Lyra took the chip with shaking hands, her eyes wide. "You are helping us." "Why?" Rylan looked at the girl, then back at the mother. "Because I was told to find a threat, but what I found was a family." Suddenly, outside, a drone flew lower than before, its lights scanning the area with more focus. Rylan pulled the curtain back quickly. Time was short. He opened the door and said, "Go now." Through the back, no sound, no light. Lyra picked up Nali and followed. Without a word, they moved like shadows into the night. Rylan stood at the door, watching them disappear into the black streets of District 12. His communicator buzzed again. He opened it. This time, "Report status," came the voice. "Any contact with the target?" Rylan looked at the stars, then spoke. "Negative. No signs. Still searching." He ended the call and closed his eyes for a moment. The night was quiet again, but now it held a secret. A new truth hidden between stars and silence. Asterisk clouds covered the sky over District 12, hiding the moon and stars like secrets too dangerous to reveal. The air was thick with silence, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence before something heavy, something sharp, something cold. Rylan stood on the rooftop of an old warehouse, watching the city below, as lights blinked from distant towers and drones buzzed faintly in the distance. His eyes searched the sky, his mind full of noise. He could not escape. Lyra and Nali were gone now, hidden in the old base he had marked on the chip. He told them to stay low, to stay silent, to trust him. He had lied to his command for the first time in years, and now the sky felt like it was watching him. His communicator beeped again. He didn't answer. Instead, he opened a small device from his pocket and played the last message from headquarters. It said in a cold, flat voice, "Agent Rylan, you have delayed your report. Intelligence suggests the target is still in District 12. You are hereby replaced. New unit inbound. Do not interfere." Rylan closed the message and looked up so they knew. They knew he found her and did not follow the order. They never trusted him, not really. They had sent someone else, someone faster, colder, someone who would not hesitate. He left the rooftop and moved through the shadows of the back alley. He knew where the unit would land. There was only one clean zone left near the command tower, only one type of craft used for silent drops. He moved fast, his coat waved behind him like a shadow, trying to keep up. The dropship arrived without warning, without sound. Just a shimmer in the sky, then a thump of air and a shift in the wind. Rylan hid behind an old bus shell and watched the door of the ship open, and out stepped a woman in black armor with silver lines glowing faint blue. Her eyes scanned the area before her boots even touched the ground. She walked like a ghost, a weapon on her back and another on her hip. Rylan knew her name before she spoke. Agent Selina. She was once his partner. She was once his friend. Now she was the knife sent to cut what he refused to cut. Selina looked around, then tapped her wristband. "This is Agent Selina. I have arrived." Beginning the search. Rylan stayed low, his thoughts moved fast. He knew how she worked, precise, no warning, no delay. He had to get to Lyra and Nali before she did. He moved through the underground passages, old service tunnels filled with rust and echo. His feet hit the ground with quiet force. Each step counted like a clock ticking toward something final. At the same time, in the old supply base, Lyra woke from light sleep. Something felt wrong. The air had shifted. The lights in the corner flickered, then died for a second. She stood and walked to the metal door, checking the lock again. Nali was still asleep, curled under a heat blanket, the toy bird in her hand glowing faintly. Lyra picked up the crystal and placed it back into her bag. She knew the time of safety was running out. They had only hours, maybe minutes. She whispered to Nali, "We might have to run again, little one. Stay close to me no matter what." Back in the city, Rylan reached a data tower and connected his device. He searched the movement logs. Selene was already scanning sectors near the base. He had maybe 15 minutes, maybe less. He ran. The sky above shifted as more drones came out from the clouds. A full scan sweep was being ordered. This was not a replacement mission. This was a purge. He reached the base entrance just as a red alert flashed on his scanner. Target location breached, unauthorized entry detected. He kicked the door open and found Lyra standing with Nali already awake. No words were needed. She saw his face and knew. He grabbed a second bag, threw it to her, and said, "We move now out the back. I will block her path." Lyra asked one question, "Is it her?" Rylan nodded. Selena. Lyra's face turned pale. She had heard the name in old records, the one who never failed. They moved through the back tunnels with speed. But no panic. Nali stayed quiet, holding her mother's hand tight, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The child was afraid, but something inside her was changing. A calm, a power. They reached an old tunnel leading to the mountains. Safe zone ahead. Almost there then, a sound echoed. Footsteps, fast, precise. Selene stepped into the tunnel, her face without emotion, her weapon raised. Rylan stepped between her and the others and said, "Don." Selene stared at him and replied, "You broke the code. You broke the order. Stand down." Rylan. He shook his head. "Not this time. They are not the threat. We are." Selene's eyes narrowed. "Then you are the threat to her." Finger moved toward the trigger. Before she could fire, a light burst from behind Rylan. Nali had raised her hand. The toy bird now floated in the air, glowing brighter than before. The tunnel filled with soft humming. Selene stepped back as her weapon stopped working. Power disabled, energy neutralized. Rylan turned and looked at the girl, her eyes calm, her hand steady. Selene lowered her weapon, her voice cold. "This changes nothing," Rylan replied. "It changes everything." The forest beyond District 12 stood like a sleeping giant, untouched and ancient, with trees that whispered stories in the wind. Rylan moved quickly through the shadows, keeping low beneath the tall roots and fallen leaves. Behind him followed Lyra, holding Nali close as the sky above began to brighten with the slow promise of morning. The night had been long and full of danger, but for now they were safe, hidden among the wild and the forgotten. No drones flew overhead, no boots followed in the distance. Only the sound of breath and the rustle of branches spoke in this quiet place. They reached a small cave near a stream, its walls covered in moss and its floor dry and flat. Rylan entered first, checking every corner before he nodded to Lyra and the girl. Here we rest, he said. Only for a few hours. Lyra set Nali down on a blanket and took out a ration pack, sharing it silently. The child ate slowly, her hands steady, her eyes watching everything. She had not said a word since the tunnel, since the moment her small hand had stopped Seleni's weapon. Even now, the memory played in Ryland's mind like a dream. Too sharp to forget, he sat by the entrance, watching the trees. His weapon rested on his knee, but his focus was elsewhere. He turned to Lyra and asked the question that had been growing in him since the light in the tunnel. What did she do? How did she stop Seleni's weapon? What is she becoming? Lyra looked at Nali, then at the crystal in her bag, then at Ryland. Her face held worry and pride, both mixed like day and night in one sky. She spoke quietly but clearly, her voice not shaking but soft like wind through glass. Nali was born on your earth, but she carries more than blood. She carries memory, she carries energy, not like a machine, but like something old. Something your people forgot before your first satellites ever rose into orbit. Ryland leaned forward, his voice low. You mean power? She has power. Lyra nodded slowly. Not power like force or weapons, power like connection to systems, to signals, to emotion. She can feel machines before they move. She can hear lies before they form. She is not just part alien and part human, she is part truth. Nali looked up, then her voice quiet but clear. Sometimes I feel the metal breathing. Sometimes I can make it sleep. Ryland stared at her, unable to answer. He had trained to fight aliens of war and tech and fire, not a child who felt machines breathe, not a child who called silence her friend. He asked Lyra when it began. When did she first notice the gift? Lyra said it started when Nali was a baby. Lights would turn off when she cried, drones would lose direction when she touched their shadows. Once in hiding, a full patrol passed by without seeing them, because she had touched the wall and made it forget sound. Ryland stood and walked in slow circles inside the cave, each step careful as if he feared the truth under his feet. He asked the next question because he had to, because his heart would not rest without it. Why did Earth Command want her? Why send soldiers and lies and agents? Why not ask? Why not understand? Lyra took out a device and placed it in his hand. This is your answer, she said. Your command knew long ago. They studied others like her. They kept them in quiet places. They tried to use their gift, but the gift faded when trapped only in freedom. Does it grow? Ryland activated the device. A file opened. Video and data and files classified higher than his clearance level. He saw children in white rooms. He saw wires and silence and faces too empty. He saw reports labeled failed experiment. He saw a note from a high officer: if Nali lives, the project may begin again. He closed the device and looked at the cave wall. He saw not stone, but a prison waiting to form if he failed. He walked to Nali and knelt beside her. You stopped Selene without hurting her. You stopped the weapon without fear. How did you know what to do? Nali looked at him with quiet eyes full of stars. I felt her anger, I felt her fear, and I asked the metal to rest. Ryland smiled a little, but behind that smile stood a tower of questions. What else could she do? What else would she learn? A sound in the distance broke his thoughts. Not a drone, not a footstep, but a call, a signal from far off. Lyra grabbed the crystal and Nali moved closer to her mother. Ryland checked his scanner. The signal was strange. Not from Earth Command, not from any satellite. He knew. Lyra whispered, it is from them, from my people. They found us. Ryland looked outside at the sky, now glowing with soft gold. As dawn touched the trees, he asked, will they help? Or will they take her to? Lyra did not answer at first. Then she said, they want to protect her, but they may fear her as well. Ryland felt the weight of choice press down again. Keep running, or trust the unknown. Nali reached for his hand, her voice like wind on water. Will they take me from you to? Ryland closed his eyes and gave the only answer he could give. Not if I stand first, not if I speak loud. He stood and faced the light of morning with new fire in his chest. Whatever comes next, he will not run. He will not be silent. Asterisk. A sky above the forest was no longer blue, but filled with lines of silver and white, as Earth satellites moved in quiet formation across the morning light. Each one watched with unblinking eyes, scanning every movement, every signal, every breath of heat from the trees. Below, Ryland knew they had found the forest, they had found him, but he also knew that someone else had sent the signal before them. Not from Earth, not from warships, not from drones. The signal came from beyond the stars, and it had found alien side. The cave silence wrapped around them like a second skin. Lyra held Nali close as the crystal pulsed faintly in her hand. Its glow was softer now, but steady like a heartbeat from a distant world. Rylan sat across from them with his scanner open and connected to a hidden frequency. Lines of code moved across the screen, not human, not alien, but something between. He tapped the screen slowly and watched as the message decoded itself into words. The truth was not simple. The truth never was. Lyra leaned forward and asked the question she had feared for too long. What does it say? What does your scanner tell you? Rylan looked up and his face was no longer calm. It was hard like iron, but his voice stayed soft like falling snow. They knew about Nali before you came. Earth Command had data on mixed blood signals. They tracked energy patterns across colonies. They knew someone like her would be born. They did not stop it. They waited. Lyra stared at the scanner, then at Raylan, as if trying to see through both. Why wait? Why watch? Why lie? Because Earth wanted control. Because Earth wanted power, and a child like Nali, born of both stars and soil, could become the key. Lyra whispered to what Rylan did not blink as he answered to everything. The signal you picked up, the one from your people. It was not just a warning, it was a memory transmission. A key to old knowledge locked away when your world fell. They sent it to Nali, not to you, not to me. To her, because she can unlock it. Lyra reached into her bag and placed the crystal on the ground. It pulsed again, this time brighter. Nali stepped toward it without fear and placed both hands over the glow. The light spread across the cave wall, showing images made of sound and color, and thought a city with floating towers and rivers of glass. Children like Nali sitting in open air, moving lights with their hands and minds. Then fire, then darkness, then a warning. The voice spoke not in language, but in feeling. They will try again. They will use her. They will build not to grow, but to rule. Rylan stepped back as the images faded and the cave returned to silence. His voice was low but sharp. Earth Command has Project Echo. It is more than a mission. It is a plan to capture her, use her, build a weapon powered by her mind. Lyra covered her mouth as tears touched her eyes. She knew Earth feared aliens. She did not know they feared children more. Outside the cave, a faint hum began to rise. The leaves moved in one direction without wind. Something was coming. Rylan grabbed his weapon and checked the scanner. Multiple heat signatures, troop class, unmanned units. Armd looked at Lyra. They are not here to talk. She nodded and picked up Nali. The girl said nothing, but her hands touched the cave wall, and the stone moved, not broke, not cracked, moved. A new path opened downward into the earth. A tunnel long forgotten, but now alive again. Rylan stared at the opening, then at the girl. How? Lyra answered without pride. She remembers things not lived. She hears things not said. They moved into the tunnel as the cave above filled with noise machines entered the forest. Drones scanned the cave. They found only shadows deep underground. They stopped to rest in a chamber lit by light growing from the walls. It was not a cave anymore. It was a place built by those who had come long before. A place made for hiding or waiting. Rylan sat beside a console and connected his scanner again. He found more files. Locked encrypted names of children from other colonies, test results, failures, locations. Then he found one marked with his own name. He opened it slowly and read the report. Agent Rylan assigned to field duty due to personal resistance. Monitor subject Lyra extract offspring. If non-compliant, eliminate subject. Memory wipe scheduled upon return. His hand shook as he closed the file. He was never meant to succeed. He was meant to obey. He was part of the plan. Lyra saw his face and understood. You were used, she said. Rylan nodded, but not anymore. The console lit up with one final message: incoming transmission, origin unknown. Message for the chilled. Nali stepped forward again. She placed her hand on the screen. The message opened with light, not words. Stars appeared. Then one phrase in all languages: you are the bridge between what was and what can be. Rylan stood and looked at the path ahead, not just through tunnels, but through history. He spoke with a voice full of fire. We end this, we tell the world. Asterisk. The wind howled across the high ridges as the forest thinned and gave way to broken land cracked by old battles and forgotten machines. Rylan moved fast across the stone path, his coat whipping behind him like a flag in the storm. Lyra followed closer, arms wrapped tightly around Nali, who said nothing but kept her eyes open wide, scanning the land with silent focus. Behind them, the sky turned gray with low clouds and blinking lights as Earth Command's hunter drones flew in tight formation. The time for hiding was gone. The time for running had begun. They crossed a bridge made of metal bones rusted from years of wind and rain. Beneath them flowed a river dark with oil and shadows. Each step felt like a warning, each breath a countdown. Rylan checked the scanner on his wrist, and saw red lines closing from 3 sides. He turned to Lara and nodded toward a distant hill where a broken tower leaned like a tired soldier. "That's the exit," he said. "We make our stand there if we must," Lyra said. Nothing but held Nolly tighter. The girl's hands began to glow faintly as if her skin remembered the light before it reached her. The air around her shifted slightly like the breath of a machine remembering its name. The drones reached the ridge and paused. A signal passed between them like a silent order, then they moved fast. Precise. Cold. Rylan raised his weapon and fired once, not to hit but to warn. The blast hit the ground and scattered stone into smoke. He turned and ran again. He knew they would not stop. They were not programmed to question, only to collect, only to capture. They reached the base of the tower just as the ground behind them exploded. One drone hit a rock and spun out, but the others moved around the fire like sharks. In black water, Rylan led them through a narrow door into the old tower. Inside, the walls hummed faintly with lost power and echoes of voices that had not spoken in years. He slammed the door shut and activated the lock. For now it would hold 4. Now Lyra placed Nolly down near a wall where roots had grown through cracks in the stone. The child sat quietly, her eyes still open, her hands resting on the floor. Rylan looked around and found an old console. He wiped dust from the screen and powered it with a small cell from his belt. The screen flickered, then came to life. Blueprints, maps, old messages, a forgotten command post from before the war. Built by Earth, abandoned by time. He found a signal booster in the system, a way to send one final message. One loud voice that could not be erased. He began to type. Lyra stood beside him and asked what he was doing. Rylan replied without looking up. Telling the truth, he typed everything: Project Echo, the experiments, the orders, the real mission, the lies. He attached video from the crystal data from the forest. The child who was hunted not because she was dangerous, but because she was free. The console warned him: connection unstable, transmission risky. He hit send anyway. Outside, the drones regrouped. They formed a ring around the tower, waiting for orders, but the tower had begun to speak. K-pulse rose from the top like a breath of light into the gray sky. A signal stronger than Earth command. Silence. A truth louder than protocol. One drone fired. The tower shook. Another fired. Stone cracked. Steel groaned inside. Rylan turned to Lyra. "This place won't hold." Lyra nodded. "Where do we go?" Before he could answer, Nolly stood. Her eyes glowed, not with fear, but with calm. She walked to the center of the tower, placed both hands on the floor, and whispered something too soft to hear. The air stopped moving. The sound disappeared outside. The drones froze in place. Their lights flickered once, then died. One by one they fell. Not broken, not damaged, just asleep. Rylan watched in silence. He had seen weapons, he had seen death. But this was different. This was peace made with power. Lyra stepped forward and asked Nolly if she was all right. The girl smiled. "Just tired." Rylan looked at the scanner. Again new signals appeared. Not from Earth, not from drones, but from above. Lyra saw them too. She whispered, "They found USA ship, pierced the clouds without sound. Smooth and silver-shaped like a tear falling in slow motion. It hovered above the tower, then slowly lowered a ramp made of light." Rylan turned to Lyra. "Is it safe?" She nodded slowly. "They are from my people. They will protect her." Rylan looked at Nalish, looked back, her eyes full of stars. Her hand reached for his. "Come with us," she said. He paused. Earth command would hunt him now. He had sent the truth. He had saved a target. He had become the traitor. He smiled. "Maybe next time." Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. "We will wait." Nolly stepped onto the ramp. It lifted her gently. Lyra followed Rylan, stepped back into the tower. The ship rose into the sky, not fast, not loud, just sure. The drones remained still. The tower fell quiet again. Rylan walked to the edge and looked up. The stars watched him back. Asterisk. The stars above Earth blinked through the black like silent witnesses to a story, almost forgotten by those who told it. Far beyond the gray clouds and broken towers, a silver ship floated in low orbit, still glowing with the soft blue light of peace. Not made by weapons. Inside that ship stood Lyra with Nolly at her side, both facing a wide window that looked down on the planet below. The child was quiet, her hand resting on the glass as if she could feel the world turning beneath her. Lyra stood behind her, holding her gently and waiting for the next voice to speak. The voice came from a screen now, glowing in front of them, calm, steady, shaped by both machine and heart. Rylan's face appeared, not with a smile, not with fear, just with truth. He sat in the shadows of the tower where it had all ended and begun, his coat torn His eyes tired but still holding fire, he spoke first, not as an agent, not as a soldier, but as something else, something new. He said, "They know now Earth Command cannot hide the files." The message was received by more than one channel. The data spread. Before they could stop it, the people are asking questions, the officials are denying everything. But the story is out. Lyra listened in silence, but her eyes held hope. Anali turned from the window and looked at the screen, her voice soft and sure. "Will they come for him?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Maybe not today, but they will not forget." Rylan smiled faintly on the screen, as if hearing them even before they spoke. He said, "Earth has changed. But change does not come fast. It comes with cost." He showed them a small device in his hand, shaped like a stone, but glowing softly. "This is my key, my way out. If I press it, I disappear. New name, new place, no more questions." Lyra stepped closer to the screen, her voice calm, but filled with something heavier than fear. "And if you do not press it," Rylan looked at the stars through a crack in the tower wall, "then I stand and speak again, and they will try to silence me like they tried to silence Yanali." Walked to the console inside the ship and touched a button that opened a second screen. The signal was clean, direct, stable. Her voice carried across it, not like a child, but like a choice. "We want you to come with us." Lyra placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder and spoke with her. "We have space for you. We have protection. You will not run anymore." Rylan sat back in his chair, staring at the screen. The offer was simple. The meaning was no thought of the city he left behind, the agents who called him brother, the badge that no longer belonged to him, the silence he once believed was safety. He thought of the girl who touched machines with her mind, who made metal sleep and made fire forget, who looked at him like he was more than a uniform. He stood slowly, walking to the edge of the broken tower floor below him. Earth waited like a question, no longer sure of its answer. He pressed the button on the device. Nothing happened. He looked at it again, then smiled. "I am not running, not anymore." On the ship, Lyra closed her eyes and breathed slowly for the first time in what felt like years. Nali stepped away from the console and sat beside the window, watching the clouds move below. Rylan walked down from the tower and into the streets of District 12. He did not hide. He did not speak. People watched him as he passed. Some turned away, some stared too long, but no one stopped him. He reached a wall covered in old screens and rusted wires. He connected his device to the main line and opened a channel. His face appeared across networks, not filtered, not rehearsed. He told the story not just of the mission, but of the mother, the child, the lie, and the truth. He showed the files, he showed the silence. He showed what power looked like when it did not want to be found. He ended the message with one sentence: "We decide what kind of world we want, not them, not anymore." Back on the ship, Nali closed her eyes and saw him standing in the light, not hiding, not afraid. She whispered something only the ship could. "Here he is." The bridge to Lyra looked at her daughter, then at the world below. Then she spoke into the console. "One day, we may return. Until then, we remember." The ship turned slowly, its engines lighting without fire, moving without sound. It rose higher, leaving the clouds behind, leaving the city, the tower, the story, but not the truth. Rylan watched until the ship became a star among stars. Then he turned back toward the city. His steps were slow, his path unclear, but his choice was made. He would speak. He would stand, and he would never forget the day a child said, "Please don't take my mommy."